Word mapping. Let's talk about how we can use this activity to support early readers. Hi, this is Jennifer from Positively Learning. Thanks so much for tuning in. 5 word mapping task card sets just dropped in the TaskBox Dollar Club. You'll find them in the literacy category. So I've already clicked on over. I've scrolled to the second page and you'll see the 5 sets right here. They're all set up the exact same way so that you can print what you need and mix and match. You can also type in word mapping and bring up those 5 sets quickly. Now, there are sets that have words with 2 phonemes, 3 phonemes with the CVC pattern, 3 phonemes with different sound spellings like digraphs and diphthongs, 4 phonemes, and 5 phonemes. And it might make sense to start with 2 phonemes and work your way up. However, I want to show you the sequence that I used with my small reading intervention groups that we had a lot of success with. I highly recommend starting with this orange set, which is the CVC words with 3 phonemes. There's a couple of different reasons I wanted to start with this set. CVC stands for consonant, vowel, consonant, and there's 3 phonemes in each word. So there's 3 letters and there's 3 phonemes. My students may not be independently decoding a CVC word, but they're probably pretty familiar with it. Words like cat and dog. What I want to do with this set is really focus on establishing the word mapping routine, because if we can get that established with this first set, then we can use it to apply to more complex words, like words with 4 or 5 phonemes. All right, so here's what I would do. I'd have my students name the picture and listen to the sounds. So this is the picture of dip. So I'd say like, what's happening in this picture? Okay, dip. Let's touch and stretch out the sounds. So I'm going to stretch out each phoneme that I hear in the word dip, and I'm going to probably exaggerate it as I model it so students can hear the sound. So I would touch and say d, ip. And then there's a sound box, or sometimes referred to as an Elkonian box. You could use this for another tactile element. You could push Cheerios or push a mini eraser or another manipulative into each box as you produce the sound. So you're repeating the word, stretching it out, and having that tactile aspect. And then the last thing is the arrow, a visual reminder to blend the words left to right, or blend the phonemes left to right and smoothly. So essentially, students are saying the word 4 times. They're naming the picture, using the touch dots, using the sound box, using the arrow. Now you notice that I put the word in there. This is not a phonics activity, but I did include the word on all of the sets, and I did that on purpose. Many of my students are trying to sound out the word by looking visually at the letters, which is great. We're glad they're doing that. But they're not always connecting the sounds, which means they're not always listening. The purpose of this set is to establish this routine so that we can build that connection. So all of my students who are using just the visual are going to start adding those sounds in. Now you might find that they're not really using them. They're just zipping right through them. They're going like dip, dip. Okay, done. On to the next card. That's okay. Don't worry about that yet. This is just to get that routine down. What I recommend after this set that they probably have just zipped through, I recommend going to this set next. This has the same thing. It has 3 phonemes. However, these words don't have 3 letters. So this is where my students who have just zipped, probably like not necessarily applying this as carefully as we would think, this is where they'd say, oh, wait a minute, that didn't work. I might even say, what do you notice? I see 4 letters. I hear 3 sounds. And that's where the conversation happens. I don't want to start with this set because the routine's not established. That's what this set was for. Here is where we're actually getting the word mapping in, where phonemes are starting to click. There is a light bulb. Now, we'll just go through the same activity. I might then take these 2 sets and put them together so that I really can see, are my students guessing? Are they just kind of zipping through? Or are they really applying that sound mapping strategy? Then you can move on to 4. This one could have been right after the CVC because a lot of these are short vowel words. That's great. But there's 4 touch points, and I just thought this will strengthen the idea that letters don't equal the number of sounds because it's the same 3. And that's what we want to introduce. Like 4 letters doesn't mean 4 sounds, but this set would be a great one too. Then I'd probably move to 2. Believe it or not, 2 phonemes is a lot harder for my students than 3 because it usually is a 3-letter word, but only 2 sounds. So they're starting to apply like vowel teams and things like that. And then there's the 5. And that's when we're starting to get into much more complex, but they can do it because they have this routine down pat. I hope that makes sense. I want to do one last thing while we're here. And I wanted to mention, you might have thought of writing in the letters. That's great. That would be what I would suggest as an extension activity. So after you've done the word mapping, I would move on to the next sets of word mapping. Then you can go back and add that phonics extension where students are naming it, touching and listening and writing in the letter, and so on. I wouldn't recommend adding that set in until they've really been able to apply the concept of phonemes, separating the phonemes, hearing the phonemes. I would wait till that is firmly established. Okay, let me show you real quick what it looks like, and then I'll let you go do it. Okay, here it is. So every set has a massive amount of cards to practice. I did put this in. This would be great just to print out or have, a snapshot of so that you can see how these separate. With the CVC words, it's really obvious, but with the other words, it can be very helpful. Here's the title card and the visual directions that come with each task box set in the club. And then here's what the cards look like. And at the very end, I have these cards that you can use. Now, these would be in a small group. You could put them in the independent task box and just add the card and add this. Let me show you this set right here. These sets. You could add these. These would go with the picture cards. You could print them out. Students could grab one of these. Here, there's room to do the touching, the tactile, and the writing at the end. So that would be after they've already had lots of practice with it. I would use these cards first. All right, I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions or if you need any help finding the cards. Thanks so much.